Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Phenomenal Reviews. I am your host, Nick Smith, and I am late on a very certain video, about a couple years behind, but I'm here to talk about one of my favorite summer movies that came out a couple years ago. I want to say maybe two. Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is one of my favorite Disney films that came out a couple years ago. And it's an adaptation, like they take it from the thing of Toy Story, you know, like what happens when people leave the arcade. But this is a little bit different. Whereas Toy Story was, you know, Woody being always the top toy, this is where we actually get sympathy for the villains. We find out what the villains are really like. You know, this movie goes by the thing, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because a villain is a villain in the game doesn't mean that they're not a nice person. And that's what Ralph struggles with, which is voiced awesomely by John C. Reilly. He does a great job with this character. With Ralph, because he's the bad guy, he's treated like crap. Whereas Fix-It Felix Jr., who is the hero of the game, every day gets treated like royalty. But because Ralph is the villain, he gets treated like crap. So he goes to this villain con thing, like where they, like, you know, like in prison or when you go to an AA meeting, you know, like when you talk about your problems. And Ralph was talking about how it's the 30-year anniversary of his game and how he doesn't get any of the credit, but Felix is getting it all, and he's tired of it. So he when he sees that Felix is having a party, he goes up to them and he's like, I want to get the same respect you all give him because he gets a medal. I'll go get it. If I go get a medal, will you guys give me respect? They're like, yeah, sure, go get a medal, but it won't ever happen. So then he decides to game jump. Whereas in the game world, if you die not in your own game, you do not regenerate. But if you die in your own game, you regenerate. So Ralph goes to this shooting arcade game called Hero's Duty, whereas he impersonates a Marine person and goes up and gets a medal, and then when he gets the medal, he goes into this escape pod at the end of the game and he flies into this other game called Sugar Rush. And how the people switch from game to game is really cool. Like it's one of those big adapter plug-in things. That's how all the games are connected. It's like a train station. So like say like if you were playing say like if they did this with the PlayStation 3 and they were in Batman Arkham City, but they went to The Last of Us or something like that, and that is really cool. Now there are a bunch of hints and nods to characters in this movie. We have Sonic the Hedgehog, which was awesome. We get Zangief from Street Fighter, Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter. The game Sugar Rush is a adaptation of Mario Kart. Mario is mentioned, but he's not shown. Now the villains in the movie, we get these villains. We get Zangief. We get Eggman. We get the guy from Pac-Man. We get Kano. We get a zombie from House of the Dead. We get Bowser from Mario. We get Satine. I don't know what game he's from. We just get all these great villains. And Ralph is basically like, you know, I'm tired of being who I am. I hate that I'm not appreciated for me being me. And that kind of goes along with how this is in today's world. In today's world, sometimes a lot of people feel like being me isn't enough, so I want to be someone else so I can be good enough. And this movie teaches that being you is just fine. You are you, and that's who you're supposed to be. And you need to like who, even if you've made mistakes, you know, you're you, and that's okay. And you don't ever want to be anybody else. Being you is just fine. And Ralph learns that at the end of the game, or at the end of the movie. I want to keep calling this a game. And we find out in a certain word when Ralph says, I don't want to be the bad guy anymore, Bison's like, you're not going turbo, are you? And what that means is there was a game called Turbo, which you all know of Turbo, and he was the best popular game in the arcade. But then a new game came in and he didn't like it. So he abandoned his game, went to this other game and got it abandoned, got it, you know, shut down for good. So no one's ever heard of him. So whenever someone wants to leave their game, they're calling it Go Turbo. You know, when I hear Go Turbo, I'm like, shift into Turbo. By the way, there was the shift in the turbo morphing sequence for you Power Ranger fans out there. And so now it's up to Fix-It Felix Jr. and Sergeant Callahan, or Calloin, which is voiced by Jane Lynch, and these two have great chemistry with each other. You know, she's the new plug-in game, and she's high definition, and Fix-It Felix is also high definition also, but when he sees her, he's like, look at that high definition, your face. It's amazing. It's just funny. And then when Ralph lands in Sugar Rush, we are introduced to the character Vanellope von Schweetz, which is voiced by Sarah Silverman. And her and Ralph have a good chemistry together. Vanellope wants to race, but the owner of Sugar Rush, King Candy, and everyone else doesn't want her to race because apparently she's a glitch. So whenever she comes around, they have to arrest her. You know, it's kind of like with Kimmy Gibbler in freaking Full House, but except Vanellope von Schweetz actually has a purpose. Now, a lot of people say that she was annoying. I strongly disagree. This is a definitely full, flushed-out character. She's funny. She has feelings. She hates the way she hates... She loves being herself, but she hates the consequences. Because she even thinks she's a glitch. She's trying to basically do what she feels is in her blood. And there's a thing that they go in the movie and they say, it's in my code. It's in my veins. It's in my blood. And so when she's wanting to race and everyone's crushing her dreams, she hates it. She even builds her own race car and they destroy it. So when Ralph loses his medal because she takes it and puts it in this gigantic trophy thing, he makes a deal with her to help her break into this part of the game, make her own cart so she can join in the race. And then when she wins, he'll get his medal back. So when Ralph gets captured, the king basically says, that medal, you can't get it back, it's all code now. So they send him back to there, or they tell him to go back, and he doesn't. He stays to help Vanellope. But then King Candy decides to do something. He goes into the code, and there's a lot of hint of nostalgia in this movie. There's, like I said, there's Mario, Sonic, the Q*bert guy, Fix-It Felix Jr., the old Street Fighter, the old tournament style, the old arcade console style. It's all great. And he goes into the code, but in order to get into it, he has to enter this code into the controller, and it's a Nintendo controller. I was like, that is genius. That is awesome. And he goes into this place called the code, and it's basically got like everything that controls the game, you know, like the Jumbotron near the race or the finish line. Or then he finds the World Cup. He finds Ralph's medal. He puts it in his own winning streak thing, and it appears on his neck. So he gets the medal back, gives it to Ralph, and he's like, look, Vanellope can't be erased. It's not because I don't want her to, it's because she can't. Because if she does, the game will get shut down. And so Ralph, even though helping her build this awesome cart, does end up being the bad guy because he ends up destroying the cart because he listened to King Candy. And because of this, Vanellope is captured. And when Fix-It Felix and the General get into Sugar Rush, they get a lot of good spending time together. They get good chemistry together when they're put into a situation, because in Sugar Rush there's these candy cane trees, and if you touch Double Stripes, you know, they'll disappear. So when they fall into quicksand, he starts freaking out and she starts punching him, and then these things of Laffy Taffy start laughing. It's funny because it's a candy pun. The whole entire game is a candy pun. So then he's like, look, hit me and we'll get out of here. So she hits him, he fixes himself, and they get out, and then they have a bonding moment. And this relationship is not forced. He has a crush on her, but we figure out that she was programmed with this backstory, which is hilarious. She got engaged and she forgot to do a perimeter check. So these things called cybugs, one comes down and eats him, and she goes crazy. So when he tells her, you're one dynamite gal, it makes her think of him, and she kicks him out, and he gets caught because he goes to the palace and he gets put in prison. So then when Ralph goes back to his game and he brings back a medal, everyone's gone because the game is getting shut down. because when Ralph isn't there, someone tries to play the game, and Ralph isn't there, but everyone else is. So they put out of order. So no one is in Wreck-It Ralph, or no one is in Fix-It Felix Jr. except this one character called Gene, who hates Ralph because it's based on the prejudice, like how we have prejudice in today's world. Like in the presidents of this movie, because Ralph is a bad guy, all he wants to do is crush and destroy. He's not a good guy. He's not one of us. Like how we're prejudiced with a lot of things in this world. They really hit good with this prejudice, and in the end of the movie, you know, you learn just because they're what they are made doesn't mean that's how they really are. Like in wrestling, Randy Orton's a bad guy. Just because he's a bad guy on TV doesn't mean he's a bad guy in real life. And just because Wreck-It Ralph is a bad guy in the game does not mean he's a bad guy in real life. And he wants to prove that to everyone. He wants that respect. He's like, I hate that I'm not getting respect, but Felix is, because he's the good guy. And so when he comes back to the penthouse, Gene is the only one there, and he's like, look, because you left, we're getting shut down. You just wanted to live in the He's like, I just wanted to live in the penthouse. And he's like, well, you can by yourself. So then he leaves, and then Ralph goes outside, and then he throws his medal because he's like, this is useless. What have I done? I've destroyed what I wanted. He throws his medal, and then he knocks the out of order poster. And then he notices Sugar Rush right beside of him, and he sees that Vanellope is on the game console. So then he gets back in, and he's like, if Vanellope is a glitch, why is she on the game? Why is her picture on the game? And then he finds out that King Candy took everyone's code and wiped everyone's memories and made her a glitch. So then he breaks in, he gets Felix, and they help Vanellope to win the race. And Vanellope gets control of her glitching powers. And the final end of the movie is on this mountain called Diet Cola Mountain or something. It's in the shape of a Coke bottle, and there's falling Mentos, so it's like a volcano. And so... And in that part of the movie, when they're trying to escape, and Vanellope tells Ralph to go into the mountain, this is where we find out that Vanellope is just like Ralph. She hates that she's supposedly a mistake. For Ralph, winning that medal is the same thing with Vanellope racing. And so she wants to race just as much as Ralph wants to be appreciated. So he teaches her how to drive, and then the final part of the movie, when Vanellope is racing and her and King Candy right beside of each other, you find out that King Candy is Turbo, and he went into the game and changed everything. So we got all this, plus the whole Cybug thing, yeah. When Ralph escaped, he had a Cybug with him in Hero's Duty, and it landed into the bottom. It's been underground in Sugar Rush the whole entire time. The General... Callahan falls underground, and Callahan falls underground and sees this humongous nest of Cybugs, because whatever the Cybugs eat, they clone it and it becomes a part of them, you know. And so all of a sudden, when Vanellope's racing, just this humongous army of Cybugs comes out, and when they're eating Sugar Rush and they're evacuating everyone from the game, when Vanellope is still racing, King Candy gets eaten by it. So Ralph decides, I gotta save the people of this game. So he's gonna go sacrifice himself by destroying the, by knocking down all the Mentos and creating a beacon, because that's the only way to kill the Cybugs. But when he's getting ready to do that, he's attacked by something. And somehow, King Candy took over control of the Cybug, and now he is one gigantic monster, and it's a boss battle. It's a good game boss battle, and he's even like, "Welcome to the boss battle, Ralph." And they have a good fight. And so what Ralph is basically trying to do is just destroy the floor, but King Candy's trying to kill him. So he actually gets Ralph, and he's like, "Let's watch your little friend die." But Ralph escapes, and then he punches through. And Ralph says, "My name is Ralph. I'm a bad guy, and that's okay. I am me, and I will never want to be anyone else but me." He learned that just because I'm a bad guy, I don't need a medal to be a good person. I don't need to own something to be a good person. And this is a good lesson for kids. This is a great lesson to learn that just because you get teased or made fun of for the things that you wear or because you don't look like them, it teaches this movie teaches kids and even people to say, I am me, and that's okay. I don't want to be anyone else but me. And this is a great movie for kids. And so the movie ends with Turbo goes to the soda beacon. Vanellope actually saves him because she's got her glitch power under control. She saves him, and then they push her across the finish line. Everything's rebooted. Turns out Vanellope is the princess of Sugar Rush, and she runs things now. And so they get back to the arcade. Felix and Calhoun get married, and they actually decided to work on some things in the game. So they even made a bonus round with all the game characters that are shut down. Because in the movie, when Ralph goes from Pac-Man, because that's where they hold the villain con thing, he finds the people from the, I don't know if the game was called Cubert or Cubix or something, but he decides to make a home for all of the characters. With help from Felix, they make a bunch of houses in the game, in the universe of that game. And so during the bonus level, the Ralph and some of the Cubert people cause more havoc, but Felix and Cubert are there to help rebuild it. And Ralph, when he gets thrown off the building, he goes back to the, when Ralph goes back to the villain con, he's like, I'm taking one game at a time. And Zangief is even like, you know, you gotta take it one game at a time. So he takes it one game at a time. He's loving his life. And before the movie ends with the people getting ready to throw Ralph off of the building, he's like, before they throw me off, I get a nice view of Sugar Rush. And he's like, I see Vanellope, and the kids love her. And he's like, I don't need a hero to be special. He's like, but if that kid likes me, and he's basically saying, because I have friends, I don't need to be anybody else. He would rather be himself than anybody else. Once again, this is a great kid movie to pick up. Now, before I go, I am going to talk about some of the jokes in this movie. There was, there's the fact that Sugar Rush is a clone of Mario Kart. Like, for example, you can go buy these little boxes and, like, it gives you candy weapons. Or there's the guards, they're Oreos, and they walk, they go, Oreo, 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 Oreo. Bring out the devil dogs, and it's those little tiny chocolate cakes. That was just hilarious. But I strongly do recommend picking up this film at your local Walmart or Best Buy or anywhere. It is a good time. You will love this movie. And this is a movie that you can watch over and over and over, and it will never get tiring. It will never get tiring. Well, guys, that has been another episode of Phenomenal Views. I'm your host, Nick Smith, of course. Put in the comments below, what did you like about Wreck and Ralph? What did you think was the most clever thing in this movie? I really want to know. Guys, stay tuned for my soon review of The Lost World. Hit that like button. Tell your friends about me. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers before summer or before the school year starts again. Guys, have a good day.